So there's a lot of interesting things. Um, I guess we can just kind of jump in wherever you want.
Yeah,
But
it's basically just us having the same conversation we were having before I decided we should record this. But I guess, well, actually, technically, since it's for a podcast, it might be, a little appropriate for you to introduce yourself because I know that you're my mom, but nobody else knows that.
well, my name is Evelyn Stilson Outerkirk. I really don't know where to start. I have certifications in aromatherapy, in Reiki, crystal healing, um, working on getting certified for Ayurvedic health coaching. And it's all because I spent almost 2 decades dealing with a chronic illness through the typical route of Western medicine and got consistently worse um, until I was on disability and I was approved for a Social Security disability. And after 2 years of being on that, I decided I can't keep going like this. This is not a life. Um, you know, anybody that has had to live on Social Security disability, it's also not lucrative.
Mhm.
I mean, you go broke very quickly and you're barely making enough. It adds a whole level of stress onto your relationships, all your relationships. You
And
end
yourself.
well, yeah, you end up feeling very isolated. Um, and I decided this is not how I want to live. And
Yeah.
I gave myself, so this is another thing. I had looked at my Social Security statement. I saw how much money was in that account. And I figured out based on what the monthly income for that was that after 5 years, so the money that I had actually put in was going to be gone in 5 years. And then after that 5 year mark, I was going to be receiving income from everybody else that was putting into the system.
Yeah.
To me, that was so bad. I didn't want to live like that. I also didn't want to know that I was basically living on the generosity of others at that point after the 5 year mark. So I gave myself a total of 5 years to figure it out and to get back to work. Um,
Yes.
that was actually my driving force. I had to be able to get back to work to take care of myself.
Right.
You
And
know,
you so I don't actually know when you started to have symptoms of whatever this chronic thing was. That, mind everybody who's listening, still hasn't really been officially identified. So that was unfortunate. It's still unfortunate, but
yeah,
you hit it very well. I know that it started when we were younger. Like, I think I was still maybe single digit age. I might have been 8, 9.
yeah. You were about that old. Yeah,
Yeah, and so I remember just watching it get worse and worse, as we grew up, and you were trying everything. Like, you were going to the doctor, and then I remember it being, like, so debilitating for you sometimes that, like, I remember very specifically going school clothes shopping, and I feel like you might remember this story too, where I think we were buying shoes, and your body just gave out on you in the middle of the store, and you had tears for 2 reasons. 1, you were in so much pain, and 2, like, you were just embarrassed, and at that point was when the doctors had, I think they had started to tell you that you should consider going out on disability, and you had fought it for a long, long time.
yeah. I did. I mean, I remember, so when I first started going, I had these terrible migraines, and they would last for days. And I was getting them at least once a week. And of course, my mom had that brain tumor. Her father had a
Mhm.
brain tumor. That was my big concern. Like, please, God, don't let it be a brain tumor.
Right.
So I went for an MRI, went for a couple, actually. No, no brain tumor, but unfortunately, that's also when I broke my legs. So,
Yay!
yeah, so
Both of them at the same time.
yes, yes, that was fun. I remember I still didn't have my legs set, laying on the couch, had my feet in splints, and here come the test results for the MRI. Woohoo! Brain
Can't really jump for joy there.
no. But, yeah, the only thing it did say was that there was a demyelinating process. So because it said there was a demyelinating process, that is when they started working me up for multiple sclerosis.
Yeah.
And, y- it was just one test after another. I was tested for Sjogren's syndrome. I had a lip biopsy because they do something with a saliva gland. They do a biopsy on that. Um, I still don't have full sensation where they did the lip biopsy. They said, the feeling should return in 30 days. And I went back at the 60-day mark and I said, look, I still don't have full sensation. And I remember the doctor was quite flippant. He said, well, all I can tell you is it may come back, it may not. In But that is a lot of the attitude I've gotten from doctors.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. It's very frustrating. I know for a long time, they told me, "Well, you're just depressed." I don't feel depressed though. I kind of like my life. Well, you're just depressed and don't know it.
Mm. I have heard that so much, and I think it's becoming more spoken about now, and it's really prevalent with women's health. It's like the top 2 things are hormones or depression, and a lot of things get covered up and hidden because it's just written off as a woman's issue, to include, like, women dying of heart attacks because, they're just written off, or they're so used to being written off that they don't seek treatment for it, and so it's honestly wild to me that they told you you were just depressed.
Well, in so I remember quite specifically, I was in Curves, right?
Yeah, I
You remember
remember
that?
those.
So I was going a couple times a week and I really looked forward to going. It was fun. I was having results. I was losing weight, I was getting in shape, there with a bunch of other women, you know, very non-threatening, but very invigorating. It was a lot of fun. And I came out of the gym, I went to get in the car, and I lost my legs. They just completely collapsed. And that was like the first time that I was just sitting there in shock, like, what the hell just happened? And I had already been going for about 6 months. So it's not like, because I had someone tell me, well, you probably just weren't used to the exercise. That's common, with women who just start exercising.
I'm gonna tell you right now, that's not common at all.
Yeah.
Sore legs, yes. Legs giving out on you completely, no.
Yeah. It was very frustrating. I think even more frustrating was the fact that I was also having issues with my period.
Mhm.
So almost hemorrhaging. And I went to the gynecologist and I was very frustrated because I thought, okay, like all the other doctors I had were men. I was like, okay, this is a female doctor, right? Surely she is going to give me some level of compassion and understanding.
You would think.
And she was just as unconcerned as all the other doctors. Like, it is not normal. It is not normal. And just for everybody listening, it is not normal to hemorrhage every month.
No.
It is not. Um, actually, so on that route, I actually, as a matter of desperation, found a different gynecologist, got completely away from that office. That man was so nice and so understanding. And he said, "You need a hysterectomy," which I had needed for years.
Ugh.
He didn't even have to order new labs. He went onto the system, found the labs that I already had, which had never been given to me. I didn't realize there was a lot I didn't realize about my own medical care. But
Mhm.
he looked at my labs. He goes, "I can tell you right now, it's no wonder you are so exhausted." He said, "You are extremely iron deficient." He said, "You are at the level of a grown adult male giving 2 liters of blood a day."
Wow.
And I had been like that for a long time.
Well, that's the unfortunate thing, like you said, that you didn't know a lot about your health, and I think it's just nowadays not nowadays, in general, people want to assume that they can trust the medical field to have their best interests, and I'm not saying that they don't, I'm not saying that they're, failing to do their jobs, but like you were saying earlier before we started this podcast, was that they just don't have the time. And unfortunately, it kind of translates to also not the time to care. And I assume at some point, like everybody went into the medical field with the absolute assumption that they were going to better the world. I feel
Yeah,
like that's why most people do that. And then they get to the point where they realize they don't have the time. They don't actually have the capabilities, resources to provide, they just don't have it, and so at a certain point, it starts to dull their shine, if you will, like,
yeah, yeah.
they don't
Well,
mean to be.
I don't I think at a certain point, like, unfortunately, the doctors are set up to fail in the
Yes.
system that we have. Now, it is extremely difficult and cost prohibitive for a doctor to go into private practice with the way, insurance companies work, with the way their own private malpractice insurance coverages go. It's cost prohibitive for them to go into private practice where they could potentially have more of a one-on-one relationship with their patients.
Yeah.
I know that when I was seeing one neurologist in particular, I happened to look at the bill and then I happened to look at what the explanation of benefits paid out. So the way the bill was written up was that it looked like I had been there for an hour. Right? That's how it was billed out to the insurance company. And they agreed to pay this set sum for that hour visit. Well, I was
Right.
only there 15 minutes.
Oh,
So, potentially that means he was able to see 3 to 4 patients in that hour, bill out, at an hour at each one of those insurances. And, it's just the way this system is set up, it is so skewed. It is skewed against the practitioner, it is skewed against the patient.
yes.
The two most important people in that relationship.
Yeah, and that's super unfortunate too because in like you were saying in private practice, it's cost prohibitive, but most of that profit goes to them, however much of it comes from the insurance company. But when you're working for an organization, I hate to say it, but like everything that's labeled as an industry is a marketable industry. And so when I talk about the health and fitness industry, I'm not talking about the people who are out there to help you figure out your own personal health and like educate you. I'm talking about the people that come up with the pretty packaging and the labels and the advertising, the over $1 trillion industry in the United States alone. It's over $1 trillion, and that's just people dumping money into it. And so when you have doctors who are part of these organizations, there is a pressure on them from the healthcare industry
Right.
to generate profits. And so, they get beaten down by the system. And unfortunately, they suffer and then the patients suffer also.
Yeah. Well, and so I just recently, because I had to find a new primary care physician, had new insurance. Um, and actually I had gone without I had gone without seeing any doctors for quite a while, mainly because I was so frustrated with the whole system.
Right.
So, I got insurance. I still didn't try and track down a primary care physician. Ended up um, going to an urgent care because I thought, I'm so idiotic sometimes. I thought, gosh, this anxiety attack is lasting way too long.
Yeah,
Turns
this
out my
story.
blood pressure was extremely high, so I had to locate a uh, a primary care physician, and that person was really good. He was a really good doctor. Um, Spent you know a great deal of time with me, but on the last appointment, well, one of the last appointments, he said he was himself dealing with a lot of pressure and stress from working at that particular healthcare complex. I gotta be careful.
Yeah, air quotes.
Yeah. Um, that particular facility, he said there was too much pressure. They wanted him to see almost 3 times as many patients in a day as what he was currently seeing. And he still felt like he wasn't really giving people the level of care that he felt they deserved. And then on the last appointment I had at that office, he said he had to quit. He couldn't do it anymore. The stress was too much.
Yeah.
Um, he truly cared about his patients. He really wanted to give them a level of care that he felt they deserved, that he felt they required. They were coming to a doctor to get, you know, care. And he was constantly getting in trouble for spending too much time with each individual patient. So he was pretty much reprimanded for providing quality of care instead of quantity of care.
Yeah, I feel like my primary care probably deals with a similar thing. She's fantastic. She listens to me. She takes what I have to say about my own health into consideration. And I can tell that she wants to have a conversation with me where she's trying to continue this rapport. And then also, like, she genuinely asks about how my family's doing. But you can tell there's that like sense of urgency behind like her body language because she knows that she has to leave the room and move on to the next patient. So
Yeah.
it's super unfortunate. But it's good that I hate to say it because the healthcare industry is losing people left and right. That your doctor recognized that it was causing him to start to have to, um, what's the thing I'm thinking of? To like violate his own personal beliefs. And so like
Yeah.
he wasn't willing to continue to do that just to feed a machine.
Yeah. Well, and it was affecting his health. Um,
Yes,
he
stress.
the stress, because he was telling me he was having issues with his blood pressure. It's weird, I know some people listening will be like, your doctor shouldn't be having that kind of conversation with you. People tell me things all the time. Complete strangers will tell me things. I just have one of those.
think it's genetic. I think you pass that down to me and my brother because people just they don't have to know who you are. You just be standing in line at the gas station, and next thing you know about their like issues with their mother-in-law or like whatever. They just tell us stuff. I don't
Yeah,
I suppose it's probably beneficial for the type of business I'm trying to get into. Like I need to know these things.
right,
Not to the extent where like I feel like I'm a therapist and I can help you with these things, but if we're gonna, like on the topic of stress, like it helps me to know that there are things that you might not even deem stressful in your life that actually are. And because
right.
this was the big thing where we decided to start recording is like stress and chronic stress is actually a huge problem. And
It is.
this stemmed from your conversation of talking about the aging population in terms of like how trauma affects them as adults. And so I never thought it, or as adults, as their advanced adult age, I had never thought about, you know, I knew chronic stress was bad for you, but I didn't really know why, or like, I guess I didn't think about the cumulative impact it can have once you hit retirement age.
Right,
And so I started talking to you about things that are like in very deep detail. We're talking about cytokines and inflammatory responses, the parasympathetic sympathetic nervous system, all these things that are very complicated, but like unnecessary to understand that chronic stress is bad.
right,
And
right.
it's important for people to know that now. Like we should be teaching this to like kids who are about to graduate high school and go into the workforce or go to college because understanding how stress impacts the body can help you alleviate and combat a lot of these chronic issues that occur as you get older. People think that just you get older and you get frail and weak and you're predisposed to dementia, and that's just it. It's the life we've accepted for ourselves, but that's not the case.
It
Like
it isn't. It isn't. So when you're younger and people say things like, "Oh, you really need to take care of your body," right? Because it's going to affect you when you get older. But they never expand on what that means. So, there's this big push right now for self-care is not selfish. But, they're not really highlighting what self-care looks like because
Yeah,
it's going to be different from person to person. And I think that's one of the frustrations I have is that all of these things from the healthcare industry to the pharmaceutical industry to the food industry to even the fitness industry, they have this umbrella that's supposed to cover everybody and they're not focusing on the individual. And they're
no,
also not giving the individual that kind of information where it's like, okay, so your DNA is all about you.
yes,
And this is what happens when you do this particular thing. And it may or may not affect you in this way. You know, they just, it's not personalized. It's also
no,
not focused in a way where we're taking accountability and responsibility for our own care. Like, "Oh, well, I just spent $50 and it didn't work."
yeah. Yeah,
That's
and we need to go to a model of teaching people to be curious about themselves and their health. Like they need to turn into their own version of a scientist. And I did this, experimented with some things a couple months ago where like I tried the keto diet or I monitored my blood sugar or I tested, various stages of sleep, whatever the case is. Like I did a lot of different things to try to see how it impacted my health. And next time that I do this, because I plan on doing it again, is I'm going to start by going to my doctors and getting full panel blood work done. Because if you're curious enough about your own health, then everything that you do seems it comes with a level of like I almost want to say like mystical fun. Like it's
it
no longer I got to drag myself out of bed to do 10 push-ups in the morning. It's I did 10 push-ups this morning. How did it make me feel during the day? Or I finally was able to do 15 push-ups instead of 10. Like, I'm getting stronger. And so I
Yeah.
think that's part of the focus of what it is that I'm trying to do with the human condition is to like, I can't, as one person, personalize your health for you, multiplied by however many clients you could possibly have. What I want to do is develop a framework so that I can teach people how to do this for themselves and then also make sure that it is accessible to as many people as humanly possible.
No, I think that's a good thing. I think I joke. Um, there have been days, and there were days where I was in so much pain, um, with no resolution, that if someone had told me to do the hokey pokey, I would have been throwing that left arm in and left arm. I would have been shaking it all about. You know, you I don't think people understand is, with people that are, have a chronic health issue. Um, I don't think they understand the desperation.
Right.
And unfortunately, well, I should say some people understand the desperation because they will say things to you like, well, how much is your health worth to you?
Yes. The marketing and ad agencies for whatever industry could benefit from somebody's desperation, understand the desperation. Their
Mm,
whole gimmick is to capitalize on those insecurities and those desperations.
yeah. And eh, I ended up just out of a fluke because I had gone to an allergist. I had the workup done. You know, during the course of the testing, they threw me into anaphylaxis. That
Oh,
was fun.
no biggie.
Mm. That was fun. And they kind of offhandedly said, "Well, yeah, that can sometimes happen."
Near death experiences? Cool.
Little heads up would have been really helpful.
Yeah. Don't worry, we've got you.
Yeah. But they said, I ended up being allergic to almost all of nature, according to this test. Dogs, cats, chickens. I had all three.
Ugh,
Um, but curiously, no food allergies. So I was like, okay. And then, I kept having so many issues. And I was like, there's got to be something with the food. There's just got to be something with the food.
yeah, it's a gut instinct.
Yeah. And so I went on a very severe elimination diet for 2 weeks and started putting slowly things back. Well, it got to the point with putting bread back, and it was an instant reaction. I mean, I was doubled over in pain. So then I cut wheat out of my diet, and it took probably about a good month to start feeling a little bit better. So while it hasn't, like, I'm not 100%, but managing the symptoms of the pain and that kind of thing has dramatically improved, uh, just by going gluten free.
Yeah, and that's like what we were talking about earlier is it's possible once you start figuring out how to combat these issues, like you can reverse some of the effects and you can slow some of the effects, but sometimes when the damage is already done, it's already done. So then you have to figure out like how it is you can work around it.
Yeah, and I think that's so. I do know, I was pretty severely iron deficient for quite a period of time,
Yeah.
and I do know that can cause some long term effects.
Oh yeah.
I also know that, it can be reversible. It's been about 10 years now since then. I'm still pushing for, yeah, this is reversible. I'm gonna keep doing I'm gonna keep working on it.
Some days are harder than others.
Yeah, some days it's a little harder to have that little bit of hope, but
Yeah,
um yeah, I still firmly believe the human body is incredible. eh, That, we're only limited by our curiosity, I guess you could say.
yeah, I would
Um,
agree.
um, I mean, obviously, there's so much about the human body we still don't know and still don't understand.
No, and the more I learned, I honestly, it's a little stressful, like,
Mm.
understanding how much of an intricate puzzle the body is and the very delicate balance that, like, if you think about it, like, back in the day, the early human period, like, people just like, they didn't have to figure it out, their bodies just worked, like, that's just the thing that they did. It seems like the more advanced we get as a society, the more access, because I was just telling this to my wife last night, the more access we have to healthcare, the more access we have to information. We have the most access to health and wellness information and practices as we ever have before, and we are the sickest we have ever been.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think a lot of that has to do with, well, we think we know what can fix it. So, we can go off and we can do these things because we have these neat little fixes over here in a bottle or,
Yeah.
in this dietary supplement. So, yeah, we can just go do this. We'll
Yeah,
just
and
fix
just
it
like
over
you
here.
said, if you had even just a little bit of curiosity about your own health, you have more, autonomous control over yourself. And so if you're like relying on everybody else's quick fixes or the things that are literally preying on your insecurities and your desperation, if you had just a little bit more autonomy, just a little bit more interest in your own health, then I think even a 5 to 10% improvement across the entire population of most uh, comorbidities or chronic diseases and illnesses, like, I feel like it would be worth it to just push for curiosity.
I would have to agree. I mean, is there really any downside to taking responsibility for your own health management?
I think if it's done carefully, because what I will have to say as a devil's advocate, as I've learned in doing research on certain things, like, and just being around the people that I've been around in my life, like, there is a point in time when your curiosity becomes obsession. And
Oh, well,
so
yeah.
I was doing research on like wearable technology and how it has caused a new thing where people, I don't know how new because I don't know when the term was coined, but like people obsess over the quality and quantity of sleep based on what their like Fitbit or their Garmin tells them. And so like it causes this like cycle of like stress and poor sleep because now they're obsessed over it. So like there's a level at which like it can go overboard, but the prevalence of that is actually not as much as somebody would assume. Like for a person to, I try to tell people like don't weigh yourself every day because it's just not good for your overall mental health and it really doesn't help you track an overall trend. It just helps you know like, are you more hydrated today than you were yesterday, or did you eat more or less, or whatever the case is. And for most people they're like, sure, that makes sense, but then there's some people that, a small portion of the population will then wonder, what it is they're doing wrong that's making their weight go up or down by 2 pounds on a day-to-day basis. And so there is a level where curiosity becomes obsession. It should not be the reason that we don't push for curiosity because it occurs on such a small scale in comparison. It just tends to be like pretty bad when it does occur. We're talking like, anorexia or other eating disorders, mental disorders, things of that nature.
Yeah. Well, in right. So everything has to be about balance.
Yes.
The human body is constantly trying to find or work into homeostasis. It needs its balance. But psychologically and emotionally, we also need to be balanced. Like
Yes.
we can't we have to and this will reduce stress as well, right? If you start taking a step back, stress is actually one of the biggest issues that humans face right now. It's not cancer, it's not diabetes, it's not getting hit by a truck, it's stress.
Yeah.
It- because stress raises inflammation in the body, inflammation runs rampant, and then you're screwed. I
Yeah,
mean,
stress causes things like metabolic conditions and all sorts of stuff. It wreaks havoc on the body when it is out of control.
yes,
Because normal stress responses are normal. Like you respond to a stressor, and that's that. Your body does what it does, and then it's fine. But when you're chronically exposed to stress, environmental or otherwise, your body's gonna stop doing what it's supposed to do and or do too much of something that it's not supposed to do. And so it leads to so many of the issues that plague us as a society.
right? And it compounds. So, you know, it's cumulative, but
Yeah.
it's not just a little cumulative. It like slams on you
Yeah.
cumulative. It's like it's like the interest on a credit card.
Yeah, when you didn't pay it. The oopsies.
Yeah. It's so much. And I think a lot of the marketing that we see is, oh, stress. They're still kind of romanticizing stress, and it's to sell this pretty little package over here.
Yeah,
Um, they don't really identify what it does to the body, how long your body hangs on to that stress. And then if you add on top of that any kind of trauma that you have experienced in your life, and we have to start understanding that what I view as trauma and what you view as trauma may look very different,
yeah,
but the effect is the same on the body.
yeah. People have less control over their emotions than they think they do. A lot of people are like, "Oh, control your emotions, like, it's fine." You do not have the only thing that you have control over is how you respond to situations, but you don't have control over the way your body perceives a stressor and the reaction that comes from it.
Right. Right. I mean, I know sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, somebody like, oh, I have PTSD. But do you? I mean, do you really, or is this yet another thing that has been overused
Mhm.
so that people who actually have these severe issues are not really being taken seriously? There are so many terms now that have been, you know, like if everybody has PTSD, then nobody has PTSD. If everybody has depression, then nobody has depression. That means it's a normal state.
Yeah, there's a whole, part of social media, and I think it's mainly TikTok, where people claim that they have these things that they don't have, and so that's where their following comes from. It's, like, really painful content to watch. I'm not a super huge fan of watching what would people call cringy content, because
Yeah.
I don't like watching train wrecks, but, like, I love watching the videos where people call out social media influencers, and one of them was I can't remember what it's like what do they call it? It's it's like some specific sect of people on TikTok who just claim that they have certain things, ADHD, autism, whatever. Dissociative identity disorder
Oh,
was
okay.
a big thing for a second where they were like, "I have this." And they're like, "No, you don't. Stop
Yeah.
it."
Yeah. I
So,
think
like,
that's the other thing that's interesting is the amount of people that seem to be increasing in wanting to have some kind of a disorder or chronic illness.
yeah,
Like, I don't want this. I want it gone.
I don't know where that comes from. I don't know. Maybe that's something I'll look into. It's kind of outside my wheelhouse in terms of like it's mostly psychological, but I'd be curious to understand why somebody would want a chronic condition or like a really major condition other than for the clicks, views, and likes. Like,
You know what though? You think you want it until you're collapsing in a store
yeah,
and all eyes are on you.
yeah, and you don't know if you can't really see where your kids are, and you're like hoping everything is fine. Like, I don't understand the desire. And that's the thing is like you were saying, it kind of dilutes the issue. Like people with these chronic illnesses and diseases are A, taken less seriously, and B, probably take themselves a lot less seriously because they're not even sure if what they're like, they're not sure of their own life experience because it's muddled with the rest of things that we see online.
Yeah. Well, when I first started having this, there wasn't the internet was not a huge thing.
Yeah,
So there weren't really ways for me to go and get responses. All I really had were doctors, some of them telling me, "Oh, it looks like we're dealing with MS." Other ones telling me, "No, you don't have enough of a degradation to qualify for MS."
that's the other thing too, is there's these diagnostic criteria that are required before a doctor can treat you. So medicine is very reactive and not very preventative, unfortunately. And again, sometimes it's the person and sometimes it's the system. I would beg to say that most of the time it's the system that's causing this.
Yeah, I mean, I had to have a lumbar puncture for that particular neurologist. I ended up in the ER twice to get blood patches because the hole didn't seal up. And the headache that caused, I can honestly tell you that was worse than breaking my legs. And that was worse than childbirth. Like 100% will never do that again unless I absolutely 100% have to. Will not.
Yeah.
And the neurologist said, well, there isn't enough of a degradation of whatever to give you that diagnosis. It may take years of lumbar punctures before we can give you that diagnostic. And I was like, you had your one and only shot. I'm
Yeah, you
not
messed it up.
doing that again.
Did they tell you anything that you could do for yourself in the meantime to try to help?
um, no,
That is fascinating to me.
no, they had no, um, they had no response. They had no remedies. They had nothing other than we'll see you in 6 months.
They're just waiting for you to be sick enough to treat. And at that point, for you, it's too late.
Yeah, like I don't understand. Like, why do we have to insist that people get to the point where they are on the ground, like
Yeah.
where you are so far down?
That's
Um,
like, have you heard of Dr. Peter Attia?
I think so. I think so.
Well, his book is behind me. It's called Outlive, and that's what he talks about. He calls it medicine 2.0, and that it's very reactive and not preventative. And so his whole goal in life now is to try to figure out how to get to that preventative state. And that part of it is him, he has his own private practice now where that's exactly what he does with his patients. Unfortunately, not everybody has access to it.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of the changes I made is number one, I stopped going to all of these freaking doctor's appointments.
Hmm.
They had me on so much medication, which
Yeah.
were causing side effects that resulted in more medication. And
And very terrifying incidents.
yeah, there was the day that you and Jeff found me on the bathroom floor,
Hmm.
cold as ice. And I just remember that particular day, I was just like, you know what? If I just stop breathing,
Maybe that's it.
that's it. I don't have to deal with this anymore.
Yeah. That was That was pretty freaking terrifying. And I'm pretty sure I was like 14, maybe 15 at the time.
Yeah.
that happened, and that shaped my whole opinion of the pharmaceutical industry from, like, that point forward. Like, I knew that you didn't wanna be on the medication before, and that they cause certain things, like, you just suddenly be tired or whatever, but that combination of medication and watching you, like, essentially almost locked in your body, like,
Yeah.
you
Do you
had
remember the one medication that caused that, like, extreme anger?
I don't. You're very good
I
at hiding things, though.
Yeah, well, I so because I was having the seizures, I started having the seizures, which I can't prove that it was one of the medications that I was taking at the time because now a couple years later, now it's known to cause that issue, but at the
Oh, I didn't
time
know
it
that.
wasn't. Um, so they were treating me for seizures. They put me on this medication, this new medication, and went to the neurologist, and I was having these bouts of rage, just like uncontrollable rage. And I knew it wasn't right.
Right.
I knew that my reaction was well over a normal response for the situation. Luckily, that day, Jeff went into the office with me to the doctors, to actually talk with the neurologist. And way at the end of the meeting, the doctor looked at me, said, "So how's your anger been?" And I went, "Oh, it's fine." And Jeff's like, "Well, actually, it hasn't been fine." And I think, obviously stop taking that medication, go on to the next one.
Mhm.
But I think what's really kind of dangerous is obviously this was a known issue with this particular medication. I don't think patients are really being given the information they need, the informed decisions that need to be made when they're taking some of these medications and
Yeah,
these
because
treatments.
the doctors and pharmacists rely on asking the patient, "Do you have any questions about this medication?" Expecting the patient to be like, "Yes, here's my list of questions," but most people don't do that.
Well, you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know what to ask.
Yeah,
You know, is this going to alter my reality? Does this have the potential to alter my reality?
yeah.
I think is probably a huge one. Just to have a simple black box warning that'll say things like
This will change your
suicidal
life.
ideation.
Yeah.
That's not enough.
Yeah, you have to literally, like, sit down with somebody and go like, "Here, okay, we're gonna start you on this medication regimen. Here's the things that you can expect to happen. Here's the things that could happen." It's like basically the information that comes to patients in terms of their healthcare is like the speed run of symptoms at the end of a commercial whenever they're talking about a new medication.
Right. I will say though, it's really important for everyone to be your own healthcare advocate.
Yeah.
And not only that, to make sure you have someone that's close to you, you know, kind of know what medication you're on, especially if you're starting to take something new.
Mhm.
And just to, you know, I hate to say, have a medication buddy, but, you know, uh, if someone starts to notice that something's not right, they'll at least have a point of reference where maybe they could point to something that is actually causing it that could be addressed and stopped or changed.
Yeah.
It's so important. And if you're not strong enough to advocate for yourself at a doctor's office, you absolutely have the right to take someone in that office with you.
Yeah.
And if the doctor and nurse doesn't allow it, then that's not the place for you. You need to
Yeah.
find somebody else.
Find a new place to go.
Exactly. You know, you absolutely have the right to have an advocate present to look out for you, not look out for the doctor, to look
Yeah.
out for you. I know there's a lot of healthcare places where they have the patient advocate,
Mhm.
and I'm sure there are a lot of them that are really good at their jobs, but the perception on the part of the patient is, "Okay, but are you really there for me?"
Yeah, because 'cause you're
It's
working for the same organization.
Yeah, they're paying your salary, so if it comes down to me against the facility, like, where's the error going to be? Like, are you gonna err on this judgment side of the facility or me, right?
Yeah, and even then, like, their patient advocates are trained by the same system that trains the doctors, that trains the nurses for this reactive medicine and not preventative, and so, like, maybe they think they're doing the patient the best service, but, like, again, if we're not exploring the option of, like, being curious about your health or alternatives, then the patient advocate's going to do what they think is going to help, and that might not necessarily be the thing that helps. And I don't know what kind of training patient advocates end up going on. I know at one of my wife's jobs, like they weren't patient advocates. They weren't called patient advocates. They were like literally the nurses that would follow the patient from appointment to appointment and walk them through the whole process. And so
Oh, gotcha. Like
I
discharge planner or something?
No, it's almost like this was for a breast cancer clinic, and so the nurse who worked with the breast cancer clinic would then also go to their oncology appointments. They would go to a cancer board. I think it was once a week. They would go to their plastic surgery appointments with them, just to basically hold their hand through the whole process. And so I think that in terms of patient advocacy is probably very beneficial if you have the right person in the position.
Right. Yeah. I think so sometimes I feel like when, dealing with people on staff, it almost feels like you're dealing with the devil's advocate, right? So
Mhm.
it's like, are you really hearing me? Are you hearing are you hearing the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Yeah.
Um, because the responses you're giving me aren't matching. You know, it's,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like they're given a script,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they absolutely are.
it's, and it's unfortunate because there are so many good people in medicine. There really are. There are good nurses, there are good doctors, there are good pharmacists, but they're not allowed to be good.
No, and there's a lot of industry burnout, a lot.
And you mean, so you have a good doctor who is extremely stressed because he's trapped in an industry trying to help a patient who is suffering from chronic inflammation because of stress,
Mhm.
right? It just doesn't work. It just
No,
doesn't work.
it's a failing system,
I- you
and we're
know,
not we're not doing enough. And I'm not saying, like, it's on the average person to do anything about this, but I mean, I'm talking like the government or, like, state governments or even the people that are, like, at the tippy top of the healthcare industry, like, the problem is it's an industry. And so if you're at the tippy top of it, you're making a crap ton of money and you don't want to fix the system because you know that as soon as you do, you make less money.
yeah,
Money ruins a lot of things. I can't say that money doesn't buy happiness because I know that if we had more money, we would be a little happier in this house, but I know I have the strong values, and I'm pretty sure my wife has the same values that, like, there's a level of money that would be comfortable with, but beyond that, we don't need it.
yeah. I would have to say I'm along the same lines. Like, as long as my needs are met, like I'm good.
Yeah,
Like, and a lot of that probably comes from not being able to work.
yeah,
Not having a really reliable source of income. Um, and, being really upset about it. And people are like, oh, well, you just get to sit at home and
Yeah,
have money coming in now.
not enough.
I don't know I don't know what you think is a lot. For me, it was $1,300 a month, of which I
Yeah.
had to pay $125 to Medicare.
That's so crazy to me when you're out on disability and then they take money out of your disability. Wow, good lord. This system is so broken. All of
It
the systems are broken, really.
it's just it's so much frustration. And while you're in, you know, the disability situation, right? You're kind of limited where you can go to get health care. Forget about going to a functional medicine doctor. I tried to go that route, and they wanted $1,200 just to walk in the door, because
Why?
in New York State, functional medicine isn't covered by insurance. If we were over in Connecticut where their other office was, or Vermont where their other office was, they would take our insurance, but not in New York State.
That is crazy to me because I don't know exactly what functional medicine goes through in terms of training. I know I've looked at it before. They do like your standard physiology, anatomy, kinesiology, like all the
So I
standard
will tell you
things.
that this person was actually a medicine doctor who practiced functional medicine.
Oh, so they like actually went and got their MD and then they were like, I don't like this system. Let me move here.
Yeah. So it was an actual MD that went and got their they practiced functional medicine. They had a registered dietitian on staff. Um, you know, it, it was a legit, hate to say legitimate, because
No, it's
that's not to say
fair.
functional medicine,
It's
function.
fair.
Yeah. To say functional practitioners are not legitimate is not what I mean at all. By New York standards, this was a legitimate medical practice. Um, but it was $1,200 to walk in the door that got you 1 hour um, initial consult, and then um, credit towards 2 additional appointments. When you only have $1,200 coming in,
Yeah,
I mean, where are you supposed to get the money? And that was the office that told me, well, what's your health worth to you?
gross. That's gross.
Well, my health is worth making sure I can pay rent every month, making
Yeah.
sure I have food on the table. Because, and this is the other thing, I couldn't qualify for any kind of assistance. My Social Security disability was too much income. So that is what I had to deal with.
Can you imagine trying to live off of that now? Because I imagine they probably haven't made major adjustments to like your short term or your disability uh,
No,
allotted payments to keep up with inflation, which is
not a whole lot. No,
yeah,
not a whole lot.
that has gotten so bad.
But you know, it was like a matter of pride. That's why I was like, I'm giving myself a total of 5 years on disability. I didn't really have a plan for after the 5 years.
You knew what you
Like,
didn't want to do.
yeah, yeah, I knew I didn't want to be on disability anymore, and I just like, I don't know. I think what my breaking point was going into a cardiology appointment. My heart rate had dropped to 30 a minute. And I remember the nurse going, "Oh, well, athletes, blah, blah." I said, "Do I look like an athlete to you?"
Good Lord.
Nothing about this screams athleticism at all.
Oh,
But they were scheduling me to get a pacemaker. And at that point, I was like, you know what? This has got to be something So simple. This has got to be stupid. This has got to be simple. And it was. I went back and this is another reason why I say it's look at your charts, look at your charts, look at your charts, document, document your health, you know, your symptoms, everything. I went back through and looked at my medical charts. I looked at my lab work. I looked at my journals and found, oh, my heart rate started dropping when they put me on this medication.
Hmm.
And it had consistently dropped because she had consistently increased the dosage
Good Lord.
because it was for blood pressure.
Yeah.
So then I went and got the PDR and looked up this particular medication. And lo and behold, this is a medication that is known to adversely affect heart rate. But here they were getting ready to schedule me for surgery to put in an unnecessary device. And I remember asking her at the appointment, are you sure this isn't related to, you know, medication? Are you sure this isn't related to diet? Um, I remember telling her, well, your blood pressure is so high. I said, well, my blood pressure is high because I am in a chronic state of pain.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
While I was in the office, I had one of my massive muscle spasms, the ones where they twist.
Yeah. Fold your feet in half.
Yeah, so
Yep.
I ended up having one in that appointment, and she immediately took my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was off the charts.
Yeah.
And I
You're
said,
in a ton
"Look,
of pain.
I told you my blood pressure issue is related to the pain. If I can control the pain, my blood pressure can be controlled, even with all that evidence."
Oh, good Lord.
And I stopped taking the medication on my own, which I do not recommend. Please, if
Yeah.
you're gonna stop taking a medication, do it under your doctor's care. I was kind of stupid, but I was desperate because
Yeah.
I
I mean,
did
it,
not
it
want
had
the
been
surgery.
decades of being sick.
So I went back the next month. She goes, "Oh, your heart rate's fine. Oh, your blood pressure's fine. What did you do?" I stopped taking the medication and I cut wheat out of my diet. Well, that shouldn't have worked. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Oh, according to who?
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Whether it should have or shouldn't have, doesn't matter. I no longer need to get a pacemaker.
Well, it's fun. So, like, speaking of like making these decisions on your own for your
Yeah.
own health, like you mentioned at the beginning of this that you are certified in lots of different things. And so you had said it's because you were tired of, modern medicine, westernized medicine. And we've talked it, infinitum in this podcast about how it could stand to make some improvements. So,
It, it-
what have you noticed about not even just the this practices themselves that you've learned, but like the acquisition of knowledge of outside of Western medicine knowledge and how it's impacted you or the way that you feel that you could be helpful to other people.
so I think one of the first things I started with was aromatherapy.
Mhm.
Um, and I think what fascinated me the most about aromatherapy is the chemical compositions and their effect on the brain. The effect of the different body systems. You've got the limbic system, the olfactory, the blood brain barrier, all these things, and how something so tiny can so greatly impact our health systems.
Mhm.
And I mean, just like for a point of reference, you're driving in a car behind a diesel vehicle.
Yeah.
You're breathing all that in, all of a sudden you're getting sick. You're sick to your stomach, you have a migraine, and it's like almost instant.
Yeah.
So if you can be adversely impacted instantaneously by a smell, then you should be able to be positively impacted by a smell. And that's how I went with into aromatherapy. Like, what are the positive impacts that the average person can do? Um, and it is powerful. Aromatherapy, when done properly,
Mhm.
can be a powerful complementary aid to traditional medicine.
Yeah, because there's a difference between, like, understanding the science behind aromatherapy and then, the MLM structure that exists with those aromatherapy companies, which I think you've mentioned before, actually, like, some of those are actually not good for you in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. So I will say to anyone listening, if something is marketing itself as therapeutic grade, run. There is no governing body
No.
that, can tell you whether or not that is a therapeutic grade essential oil. There is purity,
Mhm.
and then there is something that's been, mixed and muddled with other things like fillers,
Yeah.
right? But there is no therapeutic grade essential oil.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most frustrating things I've gone into stores on numerous occasions and I see the essential oils like therapeutic grade. No, stop, stop.
Your opinion of those essential oils is probably similar to mine whenever I see those, like, quick fix ads on social media, like, "Just 7 minutes a day, and you could get a six-pack abs," and I'm like, "No,
Yeah, right.
stop."
But that's a marketing scheme.
Mhm.
It's the other thing I find very frustrating. So when it comes to aromatherapy and essential oils, they should be utilized and viewed like you would use in a pharmaceutical, right?
Yeah.
They should not be used every day. Um, you can run into issues of if you use the same essential oil every day, you can run into an issue of becoming chemically sensitive.
Yeah.
Now, becoming sensitized to something is not the same as an allergy. Like for some people, like when you're allergic to something, they introduce little bits, little bits, little bits until you're no longer allergic to it, or your body, can get used to that.
Right.
Once you become sensitized to something, you can no longer have that anywhere near you. There's no getting unsensitized.
Yeah.
Once you're sensitized, that's it. You're screwed. And the other thing people need to be aware of is they are putting essential oils in everything,
Yeah.
absolutely everything. And, you know, that is too much for the human body. Number one, it's not sustainable,
Yeah.
right? It's using up a lot of resources
Yeah.
for
Unnecessarily.
it is. It's unnecessary. I mean, the amount, so essential oils have a shelf life as well,
Mhm.
right? And to keep making all this stuff just so you can have it in your, bottle of Mr. Clean, you know, please, does the entirety of your house, laundry, everything need to smell like lavender? It does
Right.
not. It does
Yeah.
not. It has a negative impact on if you are constantly flooded, with all of that, you're actually reducing the efficacy
Yeah.
of that. Not, and then you're flooding your body with a whole lot of unnecessary chemicals because like it or not, essential oils are chemical compounds,
Yeah.
and they should be treated as a chemical compound. Just because it's from nature doesn't mean it's good for you.
Right. And like you were saying, it should be treated like a pharmacy. Like it has, you obviously know more about this than I do, but like scents or combination of scents have specific usages.
Yes. Something like ylang ylang can reduce your heart rate, right? It can reduce your blood pressure, it can reduce your heart rate, and
I
it doesn't take
sorry.
that much.
I had heard I don't know if this was a rumor or like one of those fantastical headlines that that specific thing was found in like people were over consuming it and having uh becoming hospitalized because their heart rate was dropping dangerously low.
Yeah, well, and it's because the way it's marketed, right? Oh, relaxing, self care, blah 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 blah, right? When in moderation,
Mhm.
yes. When you also don't have a predisposition to having an issue with sudden low blood pressure episodes,
Yeah.
right? So anytime you're introducing anything into your healthcare regimen, consult a professional.
Right.
You know, do your research. Absolutely. Do your research. I mean, you've seen my big safety book that I have on
Mhm.
essential oils. I mean, some of these things interact with medications in a
Yeah.
very bad way. Um, Talk to your doctor. Let them know, hey, I want to try this as a complementary approach, not instead of, I don't want to
Yeah.
replace, but I would like to, do this in addition. What do you recommend? What are your concerns? Do you have any concerns? Probably most of the time, they're not going to have any knowledge at all.
Right.
But I would hope that they would give you something other than a, I don't know, response, right? Oh, I'll
Yeah.
see what happens. Not a good idea.
I really think that we need to do a better job at including these complementary medicines in the healthcare continuum. Like, I'm a big proponent that health coaching and personal training should be included in the healthcare continuum. And there is a push to do that. It's a very slow push. Um, and so, like, in relation to that topic, you are in the process of getting certified as an Ayurvedic health coach. And I actually don't know specifically what that means. So if you could explain that a little bit, then I'll continue on with my point afterwards.
So Ayurvedic, it's a whole different realm of, you know, how they view the body systems and how, food and things like that can impact those different body systems. I mean, I don't have enough knowledge to actually speak on it. I just know that it's a different way of viewing the body and the body systems. Um, they do a lot with the chakras. You've heard of the chakras and the
Yeah,
energy systems and stuff like that. So it's along those lines. I just don't have enough information to be able to speak on it. But the primary reason I'm interested in it is because I want to learn more. It's a very old system, much
yeah,
older than what our Western medicine system is. And I'm of the opinion that as long as it doesn't harm, what possibly could it hurt to learn more about these other systems and these other medicines from around the globe that have, been used for our ancestors? I mean, for Christ's sake, we've made it this far, right? They
yeah,
must have done something right. So why not, as long as it doesn't harm, why not learn and see what will work for me? And that's my primary reason for doing any of this is it's a push for me to help me.
right.
You
I mean,
know,
really, that's how we help other people too, is like learning the knowledge and then applying it to yourself is you figuring out how that knowledge is applicable to the human body. And then if you speak on it, now people can hear, exactly what it is and why it works.
right. With the understanding that what works for me may or may not work for you because you're different.
Yeah.
We are all even if we were genetically the same, our DNA stranding was the same. We all have different psyche, we
Yeah.
all have different emotions.
Nature versus nurture.
All of that stuff comes into play. Like,
Yeah.
that is the whole package. And you've got to start treating the whole package. And you've got to start looking at yourself as a whole package.
Do
You
you
know,
think that health coaching in general, whether it's specifically Ayurvedic or like the health coaching that I'm trying to pursue, do you think that that covers enough of the bases that it would be a good start for society to be able to access that information from specific people?
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Coaching, right? Coaching is not giving someone the answer, right? You're not going in and just because what we have as a system right now is you go in, you get a response, you leave.
Yep.
But nobody's giving anyone the tools. Coaching is important. Coaching gives people the tools so that they can start self managing and they can learn what they don't know because there's so much that we don't know. We need people to show us what we don't know, show us how we can get the answers, and then show us how we can take care of ourselves.
How do you think this is going to be a hard question to answer, I think, because it's really hard to imagine an alternate universe, but like from the jump, way back in the day when you first started realizing something was wrong, if your doctor was like, I'm going to run all these tests, but here's a card for a health coach. And then this health coach came in and they started telling you about the importance of sleep, about the importance of stress mitigation, exercise, nutrition, all of these things. If they'd educated you on that, what direction do you think your life would have gone?
You know, I think I think probably at that point, if I had been given a card for a health coach, I think that health coach would have taken the time to sit down with me to see what my day looked like. They probably would have had me keep a journal,
Hmm.
you know, and then I think they would have reviewed that journal with me. And I think they would have been able to identify some key issues, like from the from the get go. I think they would have been able to identify, um, geez, you seem to be not sleeping enough. Um, you know, your diet's a little strange.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe we should work on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see you're exercising, but you're not really taking in the nutrients or the caloric intake that you need to justify these
Yeah. What you're
exercises
doing,
that you're
the
doing.
effort.
Yeah, so I think maybe at that point they would have been able to identify, especially if they had my labs. They could have said, "Hey, wait a minute, you're pretty iron deficient. That can lead to a lot of muscle damage. That can lead to neurological damage.
Hmm.
We need to address this first and foremost. This needs to be addressed."
Yeah.
Um, but I was like that for almost a decade. I mean, it was a really long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think in that instance, had I had access or been referred to a health coach that would have had the time, right? Because that's their only focus,
Hmm.
coaching. I think I probably would have had a much different outcome. Um, and I think moving into the future, I think that is the way to go. You have your doctor, you have your nurse, you have your techs, you have your health coach. That's the whole body system, right?
Yeah.
That's everybody, everybody's staying in their lane, but they're working as a team for this one individual to have the best possible outcome they can.
Yeah, and I think including health coaches also takes a good chunk of that burden off of doctors for them to then go back in and now they have the time to explore different options and like really provide better patient care than they thought that they were. I don't want to say they're not providing good patient care, but I know that the people that are most critical about themselves are themselves. So,
Yeah, but so if you think about it, I mean, yeah, you have the doctor at the top, right? They can't cover all in the current system, they can't cover everything. That's why it's important that they have a team,
right.
right? You have, the nurse that can, interact between the health coach, the lab techs and whatever, and the doctor, right? That's the go between. They're very important. The health coach actually has the time to sit down with people to work one on one because not everybody that goes to a doctor's office is going to need a health coach.
No, but everybody that goes to the doctor's office needs the doctor.
Yeah. So, you know, you refer those patients out so that everybody gets the health care they deserve,
I
for the best possible income or outcome. You know, eventually you'll end up with less people. I mean, if you want to look at it from a financial standpoint, right? The fewer people you have going on disability for chronic illnesses, the more money there is for Social Security. So it's not going to run out. Just
yeah.
spend a little bit of money at the beginning, save a bunch of money at the end, right? It's if you want to break it down into dollars and cents, because I know they love to break it down in dollars and
Oh,
cents.
yes.
So let's break it down where, spend a little bit of money here before we have big issues that are going to
Yeah.
cost even more.
The cost of chronic issues in the United States is major. We're talking any chronic, like major, from cancer to metabolic conditions, diabetes, whatever the case is, even like acute injuries, like the cost on the United States is huge.
I I will hazard a guess that for the 2 decades that I was constantly going through that chaos, almost 2 decades, it was about 15 years before I said that enough is enough.
Yeah.
Um, I'll bet you easily over $1,000,000.
Shoo.
All the surgeries I had, all
Yeah,
the
procedures,
testing,
medications.
easily over $1,000,000.
God,
Not out of my pocket,
no.
obviously,
Yeah.
insurance, and copays, yeah, easily, easily. When you look at how much all that stuff costs, somebody got a good yacht, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody benefited off you being sick.
And that's the other thing, right?
Yeah.
The benefit ratio. Who is actually benefiting by people not getting well?
Right. That's I
Only
think kind of the feeling of private practice. Private practice doctors, private practice personal trainers, health coaches, complementary medicines are all fighting against this system of people who want to keep themselves rich.
yeah, yeah.
It sounds really conspiracy nutty, but it's the truth.
Well, yeah, I mean, but even within each one of those, little segments, you have the people that are really great at marketing.
Mm, yeah.
I'm just gonna say that really great at marketing. Um, but people have to be really aware that those marketing terms, if they're eliciting an immediate response, do your research.
Mhm.
Just do your research.
I
Um,
agree.
if you can't read that or view that without becoming extremely emotional, do your research.
Yep. That's their whole gimmick.
Yep.
Huh. Here's a question. Our phone calls normally end up an hour plus 2 hours.
Yes.
Where are we at with the podcast right now?
Oh gosh, where are we at? I think you might have enough for a couple of episodes out of here.
I think I do, but I also think this is like one of those things where you could just put out the whole thing at once and be like, hey, listen, if you want to know what our opinions are on the healthcare industry and complementary medicine, follow the whole podcast for the, I don't even know. I can't even hazard a guess. What time did you send me the thing?
Oh, you know what? That's the easiest thing to do, isn't it?
You sent it to me at, oh, well over an hour ago. Just after 10.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, well, we got to chop up the beginning and everything.
Yeah, that'll be me. I can spend the rest of the day doing that. It's been a while.
Well, and I can send you, so this is recording to the cloud, and what I'll do is I will send you the link. Um and then you can chop it up however you want to.
Yeah, it'll take me a minute. It takes me way too long just to do my normal like 30-minute podcast. I can't imagine. And you know what? I try not to over edit podcasts because I like how much like the natural flow of conversation. This is the most natural flow of conversation I've ever had because it's the first time I've ever spoken to somebody else instead of just myself.
I think this was good. I think
I
this was
think so
really good.
too. I agree.